Good evening, everyone. My name is Mark Miller, and I'm here with my lovely sidekick.
Hello, I'm Elizabeth, and I help out with Mark. We handle some of his social media and write some blog posts, do whatever we need to get done.
So this session, again, I'm Mark Miller with Career Pivot. This session is based on the blog post that is the number one found blog post on my website. It's found 40 or 50 times a day.
Wow, that's great.
And it's between this one and what if I'm not passionate about anything, make up about half the search traffic coming to my website. So that tells you something that people don't know the difference between talents and skills.
Okay.
So why don't we go ahead and get started? I know Elizabeth has some questions for me.
Yeah, I got some questions here. And once again, I went back and reread your blog to refresh my memory. And it got me thinking. But anyway, I was thinking, what's prompted you, or how did you get that started down the thought stream for this to create an article like this?
Yeah. Well, I actually have a client who is I've known her for years. She's a very, very talented instructional designer. She's, in other words, she's been in the learning development space for a long time. And one time during a session, I asked her, so what are your talents?
Okay.
She went, I don't know. She could tell you what her skills were.
Okay.
And I went, wow, if she can't differentiate between her talents and her skills, someone who comes out of the learning and development space, then I bet most of us can't. And what I've seen is most of us can't do that. So that's where I kind of walk down, because a lot of times you ask people what's your talents and they start spouting skills.
Yeah.
And no. That's not your talent.
Okay.
So why don't you give me the next question?
So what are the differences between talents and skills? How do you do that?
So one of a talent is something that you do innately.
Okay.
It may not be something directly that you can say, here, I can do this. But it is something that you do and you don't think about.
Okay.
And probably the more you do it, the happier you are. So the definition here is a special natural ability or aptitude, like a talent for drawing.
Okay.
The talent is something we do naturally. It is something we do not think about. We just do it.
You just do it. Okay.
Right? So very often, this is something that you get energy from. And we'll talk about a little later. How do I know what my talents are? I've got another exercise. Now, a skill is, as I wrote in the post, the ability to come from one's knowledge, practice, aptitude, etc., doing something well. Carpentry was one of his many skills. So this could be, these are usually hard. They're hard skills and soft skills. So I'll use the example for myself. I have developed a public speaking skill. That did not come naturally.
Okay.
It came from a lot of practice. And so one of the quotes I like to use that kind of demonstrates this is Larry Bird. And if everybody remembers Larry Bird, the basketball player from the University of Indiana.
How appropriate for this evening.
Yes.
A basketball reference.
A winner is someone who recognizes his God-given talents, works his tail off to develop them into skills, and uses those skills to accomplish his goals. So anyone who watched much basketball realized that Larry Bird was not a great athlete. He was slow. He couldn't jump. I'm going to hazard the guess that his talents were great vision and great hand dexterity.
Yes.
Right? which
Okay.
he then developed into being a great passer and shooter.
Mm-hmm.
So passing and shoot as a basketball player, that's a skill.
Okay. Okay.
Having that great peripheral vision, be able to, take a ball and be able to manipulate physically with his hands, that's a
Mhm.
talent.
Okay.
He didn't think about how to do that. He just did it.
Okay.
Right? So that's the difference between talents and skills. Now the challenge is we are asked in our career, we are paid for our skills.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We are not paid for our talents. That's why Bird's comment is a winner is someone who realizes God-given talents and works his tail off to develop them into skills.
Okay.
Now, very often we develop skills that have nothing to do with our God-given talents.
That is true.
Right?
Yep. Yep.
I'll use the example of my public speaking skills. That does not come naturally.
Mm-hmm.
It appears now to come naturally because I've done so much of it and I'm very good at it.
Yeah.
But just like I've talked before, when I walk off a stage, I go, I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of energy expended.
It's a lot of energy expended. So the key piece here is we develop these skills, and very often we develop the skills because our employers want us to develop those skills.
Okay.
Right?
So what talents do you think feed into your public speaking skills?
Oh, I don't think any talents feeds into it.
Okay.
So one of the key factors when you have skills that are not tied to your God-given talents,
okay,
and you overuse them, that's when you get burnout.
Okay. Yeah, because you're not generating passion of things that you like to do, and which is your talents. Your talents are made. You let you do and be what you want to do.
Well, it's kind of like the introvert extrovert, right? An extrovert gets energy from being around people. An introvert gets energy by being alone.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
And at the two extremes. Similarly, when you are using skills that are tied to your talents, when you do them, you go, yeah, this is fun. But when you use skills that are not tied to your talents and you use them and you use them and you use them, that's when you are likely to get burnout.
Yeah.
And that's where you have to be careful. I mean, that's what happened to me in a number of my jobs where I was pressed over and over and over, and I just ran out of gas. My last corporate, I just flat ran out of gas. I was exhausted.
Yeah.
And so, but the challenge is those of you who are highly artistic and musical rarely get to use those talents in the workplace. Someone like yourself, Elizabeth, you're very literary,
yes.
and be able to use those in a creative way. When you get to do that at work, it's fun.
It is fun. Yeah, right? It is. Yeah.
Other people, when they have to write, it's a drudgery. It's hard work. They may become good at it. But it's hard work.
Yeah.
If you told me I had to write all day.
Yeah, no, that would be, it's hard work for anybody. I mean, I don't care how talented you are. And you always hear how disciplined people have to be good writers. You have to sit down and focus. But,
so the key piece here is you really want to differentiate between, and this is the challenge, is understanding what your talents are. And most of us, as we get to adults, we completely forget.
Yeah.
So what's your next question?
What do we have any skills that are not based on our core innate talents?
That's kind of what I talked about when you, like, for example, my public speaking skill, that's not tied to my innate talents. But I can. One of the things I learned is I have a set of talents around being able to see. I see things.
You see things, okay.
I see patterns.
You see patterns.
I've throughout my career. That's one of the things when I sit and listen to clients, and they will tell me their story, and I will pick out patterns.
Okay.
That other people won't see. Now, I'll go on to your next question, which is, how do you discover what your talents are?
Okay. Yeah.
How do you determine? And one of the easiest ways is to go back to your childhood. When we were kids, we didn't have all the freaking filters on us. And what did you do that you couldn't get enough of? And for me, it was doing jigsaw puzzles. I didn't do a whole lot of them, but when I did them, I'd sit there and work the edges, and then I'd find little patterns, and I would.
Sure.
And what I found was, I see patterns in things. Now, I spent time in telecommunications, which is all patterns, right? I spent a lot of time in, now what I do now is a lot of what I see is patterns, and I can see them, and other people don't. And now that I see that, I see it come out in all kinds of ways. Is in my ability to help people build their brand stories. That's my talent, and it shows up. When I wrote my book on personal branding, a lot of that is my ability to see stuff in other people that they don't see themselves. So it's similar, like when I wrote in the book about the worst person to write your brand story is you. Because you don't see yourself. And some of the best brand stories I've had done have been done by adult children. Because they see mom or dad in a very different way than they see themselves. And so it's really interesting watching and paying attention to that. So from that, I've been able to kind of go back and deduce what my skills are. Because as a kid, I was very shy. And I think Elizabeth, we just lost Elizabeth, and she'll probably come back in here in a second. But the point here is your talents, you're going to have to do some digging. And my suggestion is go back to your deep childhood and what was tons and tons of fun. And it's kind of like in the blog post I talk about here, let me see if I've got it. Let me go pull it up on the screen here because I hit it. There was a part of the problem that many of us have is when we reach this time in our careers, usually after 30 or 40 years, and you know what? You just simply don't want to do stuff anymore. And people don't get it. People will tell you, oh, you're so good at it. Why would you want to stop? And the answer is, I don't want to do it anymore. So, let me unlock the seat so Elizabeth can come back in. Did not realize I had that. So Elizabeth, you can come back in now. I'll wait a second to see if I can get her back in. Here we go.
Here I am.
Hey. So do you have any other questions?
No, I think we've had a good discussion about what the difference is, and I think people need to start to think of the differences between skills and talents. And I can list off my skills, but talents take me a little bit longer. And I think I want to explore that or try that or see what I can find and see what other new things I can learn.
Yeah, a lot of times when we suddenly say, you know what, I'm sick and tired of doing this, it's usually based on you've developed a skill that is not a natural talent.
Yeah.
Probably with someone like yourself, Elizabeth, you've done air permitting and all this detail work for many years.
Yes. Hmm.
And you've kind of gone, I don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting work. It can be very creative, but it just doesn't feed my soul anymore or make my heart sing.
That's right. And that what that means is it's not tied to an innate talent.
Hmm.
My guess with you is part of your innate talent is you're a closet creative.
I'm thinking that's a true statement because I'm
Right.
enjoying creating a lot of the social media projects you have me do. I enjoy doing that. So.
Well, it's similar. I've got a client right now who came out of a big broadcast company,
Okay.
and she so believed that, and she was paid a lot of money, and she was miserable.
Hmm.
And it's when she was finally kicked out, and she realized I hated doing the whole job.
Yeah.
And she's a closet creative, and what she'd done is taken it and shoved it down for the last 15 years.
Hmm. So is she
And
doing something creative now, or?
we're working on that. We got her.
Okay.
She's working for she's a contract for a creative agency here in
Oh, good.
Austin.
Good.
She's managing some photo shoots and videos, and But I have her paying attention to what's fun,
Okay.
right?
I'm good.
So right, and that's helpful because most of us, I was raised to be employee to go to work.
Yeah.
Work was not supposed to be fun.
Now, your first job, you're supposed to take it and love it and make it
Yes.
last forever. And
Well, the job was there to put food on the table,
yep. Hmm.
to pay the mortgage, put my kids
Mhm.
through college, and it was not meant to be fun. And
Yeah.
my first job at IBM was miserable.
Mm.
I was sitting in a cube with a coding pad writing assembler code for word processors.
Oh my.
Gag me.
Totally.
I mean, I was miserable. I can't sit in an office for more than half an hour. Like right now, I'm standing. I've been, Elizabeth and I both have standing desks.
Yeah.
And my standing desk is outside, where I took all my Skype calls today out on my balcony. We have wonderful weather here in Austin right now.
So you were showing off.
Yeah. Well, I did Tom Singer's podcast today out there, and he was saying that yes, he was hearing the bird singing while I was doing the podcast. So, does anybody want to? The seat is open. Does anybody want to jump in?
Tell us some of your skills that you developed, or what talents do you think you have that you want to change?
And so, what skills do you? So, one of the things I recently wrote about was as you go to the second half of life, what skills do you want to keep, and what skills do you want to leave behind?
Mm-hmm.
And I have inhaled more complicated technologies for the longest time, and let me make sure, it's open. And I have spit that back out in easy to understand stories and animations and videos, and so that anybody can understand. And when I left my last company, they were asking me to do some stuff that I just went, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
I did not want to explain how video protocols traverse firewalls.
Mm.
I'm sorry, I just didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
Something that had no human factor, and so let's hear from somebody else. You can type into the chat box or grab the seat. I know we've got a bunch of folks out there. George, Nancy, and we got somebody named Two-Way or T-Way. I know Stan's out there. So what do you think your talents are? I said this is a popular topic. Stan, I'm working. So Stan, type in what do you think your talents are? And I know we got George and we got a few other folks out there.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? You don't have to get on video. Just type into the text box, slide chat. What do you think your talents are? Stan says, seeing connections. I'm a man of science. This is very common of people who as they say, a man of science, be able to see connection points. I'll use an example. One of my clients who actually worked for me at one of my startups, we branded her ability to connect the dots. What she had done at every job she had was be able to find connecting technology to people, to groups, it was always trying to find the connection points. One of the things she did was she trained flight attendants.
Oh, cool.
And so one of the things that she knew how to do was she knew how to deal with the front of the plane and the back of the plane.
Okay.
The front of the plane, the pilots,
sure,
very low emotion, and deal with the back of the plane, the flight attendants, high emotion. And again, she was able to do those connections, and she's been very successful, of all things, as a community manager in social media, and which is all about finding connections.
Okay,
she's a connector. That's her talent.
Okay.
That's her talent. Now, by the way, I saw that in her telling the story. She did not see that. Right? I had another gentleman who told me his stories and what he had done over and over. He at his one of his first jobs, he became a manager. He built an IT team. He built it to be sustainable, and then he left. And by the way, that team lived on long after.
Oh, good.
Then he went to the next organization, did the same thing.
Okay.
Then he went to the next organization, did the same thing.
Oh, cool.
Right?
Cool.
And each time that he, and it was interesting watching him tell his story, and they realized after the fourth or fifth time, he's going, wow, I've done that 4 or 5 times. And what he innately knows how to do is knows how to bring people together to solve a problem. And he was able, and he understood how to hire compatible people that would work well together. That was a talent.
That is a talent.
Right.
Especially putting, different people together at different places and understanding all their personalities and what motivates them. I mean, that's huge. That's a great gift.
So yeah, and it was interesting watching him as he told his story. And he finally, after he did the 4th or 5th time, he said, I realized I've done this repetitively. And the answer comes down to is, what do you want to do next? He said, I want to do it again.
Oh my, okay.
Right? That was fun for him, and he didn't want to climb the corporate ladder. And he'd taken one of the buyout packages from one of the major technology companies here in town. And he was ready to go. He just wanted to do it again. He didn't want to climb the corporate ladder. He just wanted to go in, find a technology group, software where he got to build the team. They got to solve the problem, where when he was done, that team was sustainable and he could walk away.
Yeah.
And do it again. And that was very, That was his talent.
Hmm. Well, good.
It's interesting. I related to. I worked with a guy who was an exec for a. He was an IT exec for a major corporation. And by the way, he at the same. Besides being an IT exec, he was sommelier, pairing food and wines.
Oh wow! Yeah.
And the interesting one with him was the way his teams loved him, and the way the way he managed his people. It was almost like a chessboard.
Oh my! Okay.
And it was through a lot of discussing. That's how. So he would move a person over to one place, and if that worked out, that was great. If it didn't, okay, strategy didn't work. I'm going to take that person and move them someplace else. And learning from what. And so it was very similar to him playing a chessboard with his employees. Finding the right place for them and because of that, his teams were incredibly loyal to him. Which was like, and again, he was good at, and that's what I say, it's the sommelier, it's the pattern matching. He knew, he knew, he didn't necessarily know exactly where the person was supposed to go. But if it didn't work, that's no problem. Let's pick it up.
You just try a different line. Try something else. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it was a very interesting. But he did that in almost. And by the way, he was also a chess player, and he did it in a variety of different manners. And we just lost Elizabeth again. So, again, does anybody else want to hop in? Otherwise, we're going to, at the bottom of the hour, I'm going to turn it off and we're going to, I'm going to wait for Elizabeth to come back. But we're going to turn off the recording and finish up for the night and go watch the basketball game. So let's see if Elizabeth comes back in. She just got knocked off. So anybody else have any questions? I know we got quite a few people out there working. Put it this way, does this make sense? And here comes Elizabeth back in. I know she just got on. And here comes George.
Hi, Mark. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hey, how are you, sir?
I'm doing all right. And you?
I'm doing peachy keen.
So I have kind of a question for you. That
Sure.
I'm not sure exactly what the question is, kind of like what you were just sharing about your friend there.
Okay. Is it all right that I record this?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And my question has to do with early in my career, I prided myself on being someone who was kind of having this ideally balanced mix of left brain and right brain, of the creative and the whatever the other side is called.
Yep.
And I'm not sure if that really was the most accurate way of describing what was going on.
Okay.
And I'm not sure that having that idea really promoted myself in my career or claimed my strengths or whatever.
Yes. Yep.
All that much. And might that be, for example, something more about my talents versus my skills, for one thing, as an obvious part of it? And is there anything else that you have to share kind of in that area?
Well, one of the things is to go back and look at, and how many of, when you said the right brain and the left brain, how much of the left brain's the creative side, right?
I believe so.
Okay.
No,
it's the other way. The right brain's the creative side. Is how many of those left brain side things did you do because someone told you to go do them?
Well, back then I would have said, "Oh, I loved a lot of them."
Okay.
But now I'm realizing that a lot more of them I had decided that I loved, or I decided it went along with, or
we get influenced. I have a very dear friend who has been a software guy. He's an engineer. And by the way, he's a very empathetic engineer.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of them aren't.
And the reason why he went into engineering was he scored so high on his PSATs in junior high or in, right as a sophomore. And I commonly say, they said go forth and be an engineer. And he has a hard time because he's really a very kind, empathetic guy.
Mm-hmm.
And as you know, engineering environments are not kind, empathetic places. And he's been beaten up a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
And he took it personally. And and so, we've talked over the years, well, why you be an engineer? Because very often, sometimes it's more important who we work with than what we do.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Being around
I
people
agree.
we enjoy is often more important. Now, are we going to make lots of money doing it? No. But we'll be happier? The answer is yes. If we can find something to do that's not ideal, but we're around we're in an environment we enjoy being, which is the boss, the team, the right level of activity, the right level of rewards, that whole bit. And so, yeah, one of the things is go back and describe yourself, particularly when you were 6, 8, 10 years old,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
before the hormones kicked in. And
If I can remember right that far, yeah.
yeah. Well, and what kind of kid were you? What was fun back then? Because what happens is once the hormones kick in, then we end up doing things because we want to find a mate. We want to, and I said, I often joke when I graduated from high school, I was 6'4", 145 pounds with a big, huge head of red hair. I was not a chick magnet. And I was very fast. I was a top flight quarter miler. I was very uncoordinated. I was very shy. So does any of this help?
I think it does.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah, there's when you get into this stuff, there's no right or wrong answer, but it's going back and saying, yeah, how much of this were you seduced? And some of that seduction is done by other people, and sometimes we do it to ourselves because society tells us we're supposed to be a certain way, right?
Or we think society is telling us that.
Right. Well, I go back to, I do a multi-generational workshop, and I talk about when I was 6 years old, every Sunday night was the Flintstones were on. 6 or 7 p.m. Sunday night.
Uh-huh.
And the advertiser on the Flintstones was Winston Cigarettes. Which we now look back and go, oh! But we were probably one of the first generations who were marketed in so many ways, and we were influenced. We were the first generation that was really influenced by media. A lot of what we thought was what we saw. Right?
Yeah, definitely.
And so I think, does anybody else want to hop in and have join us here? Or I'm going to go ahead and shut this down. And so what do you think? We had Tom and Bob. And by the way, thank you, George, for coming on.
My pleasure.
And thanks for sharing that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this off. The recording will go up on my blog tomorrow morning. And when it's on there, make sure and like it. Go to the bottom and like it. If you have comments, go ahead and leave comments on the blog. This will be on YouTube. If you want to go to the YouTube channel, like it there. Again, I'm doing this as a way to get people to realize that they're not alone. And there are a lot of people who are dealing with the same crap that you're dealing with. So with that, I'm going to turn off the recording. The next week's session will be based on a blog post on what if you're not passionate about anything.
Okay.
And when I wrote this blog post, I believe in 2012, I got 2 reactions. One, oh my gosh, you're just like me. and the other one was, don't you have a pulse? Everyone's passionate about something. And the reality is it was based off my Berkman assessment of I have no high interest. I have just a wide range of interests. In fact, I've dealt with a couple of clients that are what we refer to as multi-potentialites. And that is they like to learn, period. And so therefore, what happens is they get bored and they're not passionate about any one thing. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with it. Okay?
That is true.
So I will see you folks next week.
All righty.
Next week.